All right, we're about to enter free agency. It is officially the legal tampering period. And so it's a perfect time to talk where these quarterbacks are going to go. And I know some of them are already gone. And by the time you watch this, maybe some of these other guys are in different places. But like I said, I think it's a fun exercise as free agency is about to start to kind of view where they're going to go. I mean, we've already seen a few names. Baker Mayfield re-signed with Tampa. That's not a surprise. Everyone knew that was probably going to happen. Russell Wilson signed with the Steelers. Another one that was probably going to happen. A lot of people suspected that as being his landing spot. And then Mac Jones went and signed or got traded to Jacksonville. That's one I thought maybe he could have gone somewhere else. But those are the three that have signed or agreed to. But there's still plenty of names out there. And let's just jump right into it. I think the name that is going to kind of drive a lot of this is Kirk Cousins, the top quarterback in free agency. You don't normally get guys like Kirk Cousins in free agency. Usually those guys are locked up into their teams. Maybe they're traded. A lot of times they don't enter. And Kirk Cousins is older, so it's not like he's in his prime of his career, but he still looks like he's got some good time left. So I think the two teams that we're looking at, I know Washington is out there. I don't think that's going to be a landing spot. I think he's either going to go to Minnesota or Atlanta. Those will seem like the two logical landing spots. Atlanta is a possibility. His wife is from the area. Whereas Minnesota, they've been there for the last, 6 years, 5 years, and had a lot of success there. The family's established. And so there is that part. I think he's going to go to Atlanta, though. I think he's going to go to the Falcons. One thing we've always seen with Kirk Cousins is he's always going to get the best deal. Do you blame him for that? I don't, because it's a business. And I think Atlanta's more driven to make this deal happen. I think they're going to offer more money. And I think he sees the weapons that they have, the ascending team, and he's just going to go and get that money. So that's the first big domino. Other than that, like I said, I think Baker Mayfield was probably the next best guy. Russell Wilson after that. Those guys are already at their landing spots. And so we look at who else is available. Well, now Minnesota needs to find a replacement. And they're sitting, at 12th in the NFL draft with not a lot of draft capital. I don't know if that's a spot that they're going to be able to move up and get somebody. So I think with Kirk Cousins going to Atlanta, that opens up Minnesota. And Minnesota sticks in that Shanahan, McVay tree. And I think they get Sam Darnold to replace Kirk Cousins. Sam Darnold, third pick to the Jets, didn't really work out with the Jets, gets traded to Carolina, doesn't work with Carolina, gets cut, goes to San Francisco. All reports that he does well in San Francisco, learning under Kyle Shanahan. Now he's ready to go off. And Kevin O'Connell comes from that same style of system. I think they go with Darnold there. Another free agency. I think once Kirk Cousins makes his decision, the next guy that we really have to keep an eye on is Justin Fields. And Justin Fields is a guy that is going to get traded. Spoiler alert, he's going to get traded. And it'll be curious to see where he goes. Because for a while, a lot of people assume that Atlanta would be hot after him. Denver could be hot after him. The Raiders, all these teams, because, from all intents and purposes, the only reason why the Bears are moving off from him is because they have the number one pick and are going to take Caleb Williams. And that's not to say that Fields doesn't have flaws. He's got a lot of flaws, and there's a reason why that this is all happening. So he looked like the next guy. But the market, from all intents and purposes, is kind of dried up on him. And I'm a huge Justin Fields fan. But it just doesn't seem like there's a lot of teams clamoring. And I think if Cousins goes to Atlanta, that takes really the one team that you really think would go hot after Fields. And so where does he go? Pittsburgh was another team. They just got Russell Wilson. Las Vegas isn't going to work because Luke Getsy just got fired from the Bears working with Justin Fields. And there was that big tension between those. And remember, Fields called him out in the press conference, said they need better coaching. And there was, I think the whole purpose of Getsy getting that Las Vegas job was that they thought he wasn't the problem, that Fields was the problem. So I don't think Fields is going to go to the Raiders. So, but who else is out there? New England? I don't necessarily think that's going to be the fit there. Giants, they've got Daniel Jones. I don't think they're going to go after Fields. So there's not a lot of openings out there. Denver, I don't think he's a good fit in what Sean Payton wants to do. And so I think the starting jobs that are out there that are open, Fields doesn't really fit them. And so now, instead of maybe trading him for a second-round pick or a couple twos, like a lot of people thought they were going to get, I think we're looking at Justin Fields in a backup-type role. And I think the team that I'm going to project him to go to, because I think New England's a possibility. I just don't think so. I think he's going to go to Cleveland. And I think the Bears are going to trade maybe a third-round pick, get a third-round pick in exchange for him, maybe even less. I know the Browns just traded a couple picks away to the Broncos to get Jerry Jeudy. But here's a team with the Browns that's ready to compete. They don't have a ton of holes on their roster. I think their biggest concern is at quarterback. And Deshaun Watson's been hurt. He's been hurt 2 straight years. Hasn't really played to what they thought they were getting in him. And Flacco came in last year and played well. And I think that they say, hey, we need a good backup. We've seen, I know they got DTR, but they've seen what it is. And I think that's the route that they go. And they say, hey, we'll give you, a couple mid-round picks. Maybe it's not what the Bears fans thought, and it's not what I initially thought coming in, but I think that's the way they go. Fields is there. Maybe gets a year to kind of just sit back and reshape things, because he's only going to be a 1-year deal. Teams have to pick up that 5th-year option. No one's probably going to pick up his 5th-year option. He's probably going to go and basically finish out his rookie year. Maybe he gets to play there because, like I said, Watson's been hurt and plays well, and that leads him to getting a free agent deal. Or maybe he just goes and sits, and then he's a free agent, and then he goes and signs somewhere else. Sticking with the free agency, Joe Flacco, I just mentioned him a little bit ago. I think Cleveland would like to get him back. I don't think he's going to go back there. I see him going to New England. I see him going to New England. I see him reuniting with Alex Van Pelt, who was the offensive coordinator this past year with Cleveland, where he had that rejuvenation. New England, I think, is going to take a rookie in the draft, and we'll get to that in just a little bit. But I think they want a veteran. They want someone to come in, be that bridge starter, and I think Joe Flacco is the perfect person for that. The only other, I think, notable free agent that's still out there that I haven't talked about is Ryan Tannehill, and I'm not quite sure where he's going to go. I could see him maybe going to the Giants. They need a backup to Daniel Jones, who once again has struggled, has some injuries the last couple of years, struggled at times. I think the Raiders are a possibility also. I think they're a team that Russell Wilson, I was thinking, could potentially go there. Once again, mentioned in the Justin Fields talk. But I think Tannehill is probably going to go to one of those 2 teams. Once again, looking as a veteran backup, a guy that can maybe come in, or maybe a bridge starter. But let's transition. So far we've got Kirk Cousins going to the Falcons. We got Justin Fields going to the Browns, and Joe Flacco going to the Patriots. So let's look at the draft, because that's kind of, I think, going to play into some of this too. Chicago Bears have the number 1 overall pick. They're going with Caleb Williams. Not a surprise. Once again, that's why they're moving on from Justin Fields. Getting the Panthers' number 1 overall pick. All intents and purposes, they're going with Caleb Williams. Number 2 with Washington Commanders. They're a team that's been mentioned with Kirk Cousins, and he has played there before. I don't think he's going back there. They got that number 2 pick. I think they're pretty excited about Jaden Daniels, and barring something super crazy, which isn't going to happen, they're going to get Jaden Daniels. Now, this 3rd pick looks interesting. New England Patriots, for the longest time, it looked like this was going to be Caleb Williams and then some combination of Drake May and Jaden Daniels. I don't know if that's going to happen anymore. Just the closer and closer we get to the NFL draft, the more and more we hear about Drake May not being as big of a fan. And I think we see, people are like, oh, what has he done that's dropped? It's not anything that he's done. I think a lot of the media, people like me who do this for fun, people who do it for their job, we anoint players ahead of time because we're just watching the tape. We see people flash. And then this stuff comes out. People start to learn what NFL teams think of and see these quarterbacks. And I think a lot of the Drake May falling is because the NFL's not as high on him as the fans are, as the media is. And so their opinions are starting to come down to where the NFL teams meet. And so I think with New England, I think they're a prime team to trade out and have a team jump up in. And maybe that team jumps up in for a J.J. McCarthy. Maybe they jump in for Drake May. Once again, this could be a red herring as well. I like Drake May. I don't think he's a perfect prospect. I have him as my second-rated quarterback, but I could definitely see why teams like Jaden Daniels better. Long route of going, whatever New England does, whether they stick at 3 or they trade back, I think they get J.J. McCarthy. From all intents and purposes, that's the name that you're starting to hear that the Patriots tied to. And maybe they don't feel like they have to take him here at 3. Maybe they trade back. Maybe a team's trading up to get a certain player. And I think they're going to end up with J.J. McCarthy. I mentioned they got Joe Flacco a little bit ago. I think Flacco is whoever, whether it's Drake May sitting for a year. There's some people out there in evaluation that say that he needs to sit for a year. Or it's even J.J. McCarthy, who once again is coming from a run-heavy offense. Didn't ask him to do a lot, so maybe he just needs some time getting acclimated to the NFL, to an NFL playbook, or NFL-style playbook, because his head coach is in the NFL now. And I think Flacco starts there initially, or just gives that veteran presence to that lineup. So then asks us, where does Drake May go? Okay. Once again, I think he's going to be, he could just be that 3rd pick, and all this scuttlebutt of him dropping and not teams liking him is overblown. Or maybe he has that. Remember Justin Fields? A lot of people had him as their second-rated quarterback, their third-rated quarterback. A lot of people thought he could have been the number 1 quarterback in any other draft. And we saw Trevor Lawrence go 1. We saw Zach Wilson go 2. 49ers trade up to get Trey Lance, and then Justin Fields fell all the way to 10, 11. We could see Drake May do that. But I think the team, and if he slides a little bit, I think the team that's going to get him, that's going to move up for him, is the Las Vegas Raiders. They're a team that desperately needs a quarterback. I think they're going to move up to try and get him and be aggressive, because I don't think they're going to strike on any of these free agent quarterbacks. All right, we got 2 more rookie quarterbacks. We got Bo Nix and we got Michael Penix. I think Bo Nix is going to go to the Denver Broncos. To me, he just screams Sean Payton, quick decision maker, get the ball out fast. He's deadly in that short to intermediate, and that is Sean Payton's game. He wants to get the ball out quick. Sure, they'll take deep shots, but I think Bo Nix is the perfect guy for them. When you think of Bo Nix and what he really had success with at Oregon, that's exactly with what Sean Payton wants to do. And I think the Broncos, I don't know if they take him, in the top 15. I don't know. It wouldn't shock me if they did. I don't know if they will. So I think maybe they trade back and take him later on, or maybe they trade back up into the first round to get him. I'm not quite sure at this point. But I just know that I think Bo Nix is going to be a Denver Bronco. And then that leaves us with Michael Penix, the Washington's quarterback, another guy I have highly rated. I think he's my 4th rated quarterback in this class. I like him a lot, but I think there's a lot of injury concerns, 2 knees, 2 shoulders, something like that. He was injury prone at Indiana, but then goes for 2 years to Washington, doesn't have any injuries. But I think some of those knee injuries have zapped his athleticism. He still moves pretty well, but he's not as explosive as he was at Indiana. And I think just those concerns about his injuries will push him into the 2nd round. But I think he reunites with one of his Washington coaches, Ryan Grubb, who's now Seattle's offensive coordinator. And we see the Seahawks getting their quarterback of the future in Michael Penix. Doesn't have to play right away, but they got Geno Smith, write out Geno Smith's contract, and then they got Michael Penix coming up. So that's where I see all the quarterbacks going. I think we have a lot of possibilities out there, and it should be a fun free agency, should be a fun draft. I think what we see in free agency is really going to help us shape what we see in the NFL draft. And we haven't seen a quarterback situation like this for a while. We haven't seen a guy like Kirk Cousins become a free agent. We got a guy like Justin Fields is willing to be traded. We got Russell Wilson, Baker Mayfield out there. That's probably one of the strongest quarterback free agent classes we've had. And then you get one of the better quarterback classes. I mean, Chris Sims the other day on his podcast mentioned that he viewed those top five out of those 6 quarterbacks as franchise level quarterbacks, and he had Caleb Williams as one of the better prospects to come out in a long time. You're hearing that a lot, and I think the combination of this free agency class with this draft class, it's something we haven't seen for a while. So it's super exciting. I can't wait to see it play out. Make sure you subscribe. If you like this video, I got plenty more. I got a lot of draft videos coming out in the near future, so make sure you're keeping the eye on the channel. Best way to get those is to subscribe and then hit the bell for notifications. And then make sure you're following me on social media, draft_Brian. Thanks for watching. Till next time.